All right, hi you guys, welcome today. I'm really happy you're here. So here we are, second Wednesday of the month as we usually meet. Hello Facebook. We're here today to talk about some healthier Thanksgiving side dishes and appetizers. Okay, so big food holiday coming up, and there's definitely a lot of reason to celebrate, but you don't necessarily have to break the calorie budget doing so, right? So I'm gonna offer just a couple of different ideas for some alternatives for Thanksgiving dishes, okay? So the first one that we're going to do is going to be stuffing, but we're going to be making it with quinoa instead of bread, okay? So this is a great alternative, especially maybe if you're trying to lose weight or if you have type 2 diabetes, because quinoa is much higher in protein than bread, and it's full of fiber, and it's considered a whole grain. So it can be a good healthy swap instead of the traditional stuffing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook the quinoa in what's called the peel-off method, okay? Basically the peel-off method is where you're going to toast some herbs and aromatics in fat before you add the grain. Got some stragglers. Okay, so basically what we're going to start with is some really traditional flavors of stuffing, onions and garlic. Now, we're not just using any onion. I'm actually going to be using a shallot, which is a little bit sweeter and milder than a typical onion. It's a little bit smaller as well. So I'm also going to start, we're going to use about 2 tablespoons of butter for our fat choice. And we're choosing butter just because we want to get kind of some more of the traditional flavors of stuffing, but not overdo it. So we're just going to get this going on here. That's on. And then we're going to mince our garlic and our shallots. Okay, so cutting a shallot is very similar to the way you would cut an onion, okay? You're just going to take a couple of horizontal slices and then some vertical slices, okay, along the lines of the shallot. Try and space them kind of evenly, that way you get even pieces. Keep your fingers back, and then we're gonna go along, and we should get even little cubes as we go through here, okay? And cutting them uniformly helps them cook at an even rate and avoids those large chunky pieces in your food. Okay, so and then we're just gonna throw the root away. We're gonna wait for our butter to completely melt and get hot, because remember my rule, you wanna add to a hot pan. That way the vegetables don't just sit there and absorb the fat, okay? So then we've got, I'm actually gonna do 4 big cloves of garlic, okay? Because that's a really traditional flavor and really yummy in here. Okay, so these are not peeled yet. What I'm gonna do is just take off the root end, okay? That helps loosen the peel a little bit, and then what's really gonna help it is placing the flat side of your knife on there and pressing down, okay? That smashes it a little bit and helps it come right out of its peel. So. Pop it out. There you go. Okay? And it actually doesn't matter that we're smashing it a little bit, because we're going to end up mincing it, so that works out well. And actually smashing it helps it mince a little bit easier. So there we go. Alternatively, you could use a garlic press. I don't know if I brought my garlic press today, but it's just as easy to mince them. You can kind of start to hear the butter a little bit. That means it's getting hot. And doing it this way, with the peel-off way, it really gives the grains, which are otherwise kind of bland, more flavor, okay? So if you're hesitant to try quinoa, I suggest that you try this method because it really helps bring out a lot of good flavor in there. Okay, how many of you have tried quinoa? Most of you have tried it here, right? We've done it here before in class, so. Have you guys tried cooking it at home since here? Good.
Well, my dad
Did they? Nice.
3 years.
Alright, so butter's getting warm. So there's really no rhyme or reason to how I mince garlic, but we're just gonna kind of go through, shove it together. Doesn't matter too much, just getting it small. And then we're gonna go ahead and add it all to our hot pot. Perfect. So we're gonna get that going, get it softened up a little bit. You wanna make sure your heat's about like medium because you don't wanna burn the garlic. It's pretty finicky, okay? Another thing we're gonna add, pretty traditional for stuffing, is another vegetable. What's a traditional vegetable in stuffing?
Celery.
Yeah, celery. Okay, so we're gonna make this kind of veggie heavy, making sure we get a lot of veggies in here. So we got some onions, some garlic. You can already smell it, huh?
Yeah.
And then, okay, so I was gonna show you, I usually cut the celery on the flat side, okay, so that it's not rolling around when it's on the curvy side. So, flat sides down. I'm just gonna hold them all together and just kind of push them through as I keep my knife in the same place. And I'm making them pretty thin slices so they'll cook pretty quickly. Perfect. Gonna add those in as well so they start to soften up. What's a really traditional herb that usually goes in stuffing?
Sage.
Sage, yes. So, you guys know, we're doing a lot of the traditional flavors, just the main component is different, okay? And I will say too that for this stuffing, I wouldn't actually stuff it in the bird. And I would say too, actually, that stuffing, the actual stuffing in the bird, is really kind of a breeding ground for bacteria. I actually recommend making your stuffing, also called dressing, on the side and baking it and then serving it with the turkey and stuffing the turkey with, you know, orange slices and onions and garlic cloves and lemon. So that you still get a lot of good flavor, but then you don't actually eat those things. They're just for the flavor for the turkey, and then keep the dressing on the side. Okay, so we've got some fresh sage. I'm also gonna put a little bit of thyme in it. So this is what fresh sage looks like, if any of you have ever seen it. Now, raw sage doesn't taste very good, okay? So you wanna make sure you get it in that cooking fat so it starts breaking down, starts cooking a little bit, okay? So I'm just gonna stack up the leaves here. Hi. Hi. And then, let's see. I probably wanna do equal about 2 or 3 tablespoons of this. So this is also called chiffonade, okay? So I'm basically just stacking the leaves and then I'm gonna kind of give them a little bit of a roll and then go through and chop them just like this. Real thin little slices. And then go back through and give them another little chop. Wow, and you can already smell that for sure too. Sage is really powerful, so you don't need a whole bunch. Smells like the holidays.
Did you say once before that herbs are stronger when they're already dried or fresh?
So you're going to need to use less when they are dried.
Oh.
Right. So when they're fresh, you can use like 1/4 of a cup, but when they're dried, you would use like 1 tablespoon.
Wow.
You need less when they're dried.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and for those of you who just come in, we're making quinoa stuffing. Okay? So, getting that cooked down a little bit. Now we're going to add the thyme. This is what thyme looks like. And the best way to peel thyme is just to take it at the top of the stalk, hold your fingers and run them down, peeling off the leaves. Okay? I used to be the person who was like, taking off every single leaf like that, and I'm just like, there's got to be a better way. So this is a better way. Just run your finger down and it slides all of the leaves off of there, okay? Again, thyme has really fantastic flavor as well. So good. A couple stalks of it. And this actually, because they're so small, they don't really even need that much chopping. Okay. Real good, smelling good. Okay. So that's just gonna go in there as well, start cooking down. We're gonna season this with just a little bit of salt and freshly cracked pepper. Okay. Doesn't need much because we have a lot of herbs and good flavors going on there. And I like to use fresh cracked pepper because it has a lot better flavor. And then we're gonna get the quinoa in there to toast a little bit with our other aromatics. So this is just some tricolor quinoa. It's about 1.5 cups. So I rinsed it before I put it in there, okay? So we're just going to toss that around with our different vegetables and stuff, and we're just gonna give it a good toast, and that's gonna help bring out some of the nuttiness and flavor that quinoa inherently has.
I remember my first try at cooking quinoa. I didn't rinse it, and it was so bitter. And I looked it up, and it said that the plant has like a soapy residue on it, which protects it from insects or.
That's what a little, yeah, it's called saponins. That's the compound that it has, yeah.
And it was so bitter, we couldn't eat it.
Yeah. It does take a little bit of care and effort to make quinoa taste good, but I promise it's going to taste good. Okay, so the ratio for quinoa is 2-to-1 ratio. So if you have 1 cup of grain, use 2 cups of liquid. We had 1.5 cups of quinoa approximately, so we're going to use about 3 cups of liquid. I like to cook quinoa in broth, okay, because that gives it a little bit more flavor. Same thing with stuffing is usually cooked with broth, so that's what we're going to do today as well, okay? So I just have some low sodium vegetable broth here that we're going to use, about 3 cups of it. So go ahead and just pour this in. Perfect. Now, you're going to want to bring it all the way up to a full rolling boil, okay? And then we're going to cover it, turn the heat down, and let it simmer. And it's only going to take probably about 15 minutes to cook, but that's why we're starting with this, because it does require some cook time on here. Now, actually, the recipe that I have for you guys over here, it actually has the extra step at the end to bake it, because I think they want you to get that kind of crusty on the top that you would normally have with stuffing. We're not going to bake it today, but certainly when you do it at home, you can add that stuff in. Okay, cranking the heat back up because we want to bring this to a boil. Okay.
So you didn't use that whole container of broth?
So this container is 4 cups, and I was using about 3 cups because we had 1.5 cups of grain.
Okay.
And you probably want to actually measure it when you do it at home. I've done this a lot of times, so I kind of eyeball it. But just to be on the safe side, measure it when you're at home. Okay, so we're going to bring that up to a boil. As soon as it gets to boil, we're going to turn it down. Okay, so the next recipe that we're going to make, any questions on that or how to cook quinoa?
So you can use vegetable broth, chicken broth, beef broth, whatever you want.
Sure, yeah. For the more traditional stuffing flavor, I would recommend something like vegetable or chicken, not beef, but certainly if you were just making it as a side dish or something like that, you could use. I've even cooked quinoa in coconut milk for more of like a curry flavor or to serve with curry. So there's lots of different ways you can cook it. Okay, so next we're going to make more kind of like of a light and refreshing side dish. A lot of Thanksgiving dishes can be kind of heavy and energy dense or calorie dense. So we're going to be making a carrot salad. Okay, usually carrots at Thanksgiving are what? Usually glazed with butter and sugar. Okay, so we're actually going to keep them raw. They're not going to be cooked. I already grated a bunch here, but I kind of wanted to show you too. I'm just going to use my food processor to grate some carrots, but you can also use a box grater or just a regular grater. I just do this because, you know, we don't have all day and it's easy to do it in a food processor. If you have a food processor, you would want to use your grating blade. Looks like this, not your typical spin around blade, okay? So I'm just going to put that in here. I'll be loud for a second. We're just going to go ahead and grate those. And I didn't peel them.
Are they organic?
I don't think so. And that's it. Pretty easy. Okay?
I have a food processor and I'm telling you, they save time.
They save a lot of time. I was telling Matt earlier that this is like my favorite thing in my kitchen. If there's something to get, it would be a food processor. I love it so much.
We cook for my husband's mom and I use my food
Yeah.
processor lunch. And I go, it's time for dinner. And she goes, already? She says, you're so fast.
It's a time saver for sure. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a bunch of grated carrots over there. I probably used about 2 pounds of carrots. So just grated them up. You could scale your recipe to however many people you're feeding. Okay. Another thing we're going to add to our carrot salad is some thinly sliced radishes. Okay. So we're gonna just grab some of these. And how I like to slice radishes because they are round. I usually cut them in half, and then with the cut side down so it's not rolling around all over the place, I just go through and make thin little slices. See, it'll get away from you. Just like that. Cut side down. Again, your fingers are pushing the vegetable through and your knife is staying at about the same spot. Okay? And radishes are pretty pungent. They have a pretty strong flavor. That's why I like to cut them kind of thin, just so that you're not getting huge bites of radish. Okay, this is up to almost a boil, so we're gonna go ahead and cover that. And turn it down just a little bit. Okay. Were any of you at the Thanksgiving class last year? Any of you? Oh, good. Well, my Thanksgiving class last year, I had some, I think it was carrots going, and I put a lid on my skillet that didn't fit, and it got literally stuck on there, and we couldn't even eat the food in there because it was stuck. Oh, not my finest cooking moment ever. Oh yeah, Roxanne, you were there, right? Yeah, that's funny. And then I put it in the freezer, which it seizes up, and then you're able to get the lid off. But oh my gosh, it was so funny.
I did that with a pressure cooker. Oh, that was awful.
Pressure cookers are tricky sometimes. Get rid of that. Okay.
Put it back in the box and never use it since.
So I'm probably going to do about 5 radishes, maybe 6. Just to get that nice peppery bite in there. Get a little bit more color. Then we're also going to add some scallions. What's another name for scallions?
Green onions.
Green onions, yep. So I used to always get scallions and shallots mixed up. Okay, this is a shallot, this is a scallion. Just so you know.
Looking for them and I didn't realize that green onions and scallions.
Right, are the same thing.
I didn't realize
Yeah, and they're in the onion family. So these are just gonna go into our carrots. Okay, now if I was gonna tell you that I was gonna put a dried fruit in those carrots, what dried fruit do you think I would put in there? What kind of raisins? Cranberry. I'm actually going to put golden raisins in there, which are pretty typical to pair with carrots. Now, golden raisins are basically green grapes instead of red grapes, right? Okay, I think that's enough radishes, and then we'll put a couple of scallions in there as well.
I always wondered how they got, what the deal was when they were yellow.
Right? Yeah, just a different kind of fruit. And then we want to include the green parts and the white parts. Some recipes call for either or, but so the green part tastes a little bit more herb-like, and the white part tastes a little bit more onion-like. Okay. So let's get all of that goodness in there. I wanted to just show you, I've got some golden raisins right here. This is what they look like. Okay, basically regular raisins, but they're green grapes. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a couple of those in there, just for a little bit of sweetness and chewiness. Probably about 1/4 a cup. I think the recipe calls for a 1/4 a cup, so that goes in there. And then I'm also going to put in some pistachios, okay? And you could really do any type of nut that you like, but I think pistachios are so festive. Like I think like holiday meals, and I'm just like, pistachios sound so good. So we're going to add some of these. I'm not really even going to chop them because they're already kind of bite-sized, so I'm just going to throw some in there.
Are they salted?
Yeah, I think these are roasted and salted pistachios from the bulk at Winco. Okay. Never can have too many pistachios. Those are really tasty. They're really good. Okay, so, and then I'm also going to add some fresh parsley. And I also think a really good addition would be fresh dill. I didn't have any fresh dill today, but I think that if you did do it at home, it would be a good addition. Or even if you had dried dill. Okay, so got some parsley here. How I usually chop parsley, really no rhyme or reason, but I usually just shuck off the top parts here so you don't get a lot of stems. You get mostly the leaves. And then kind of just gather them up. Ooh, you can smell that parsley too. And just give it a rough chop. And I mean, the stems have good flavor too, so if you have a few stems in there, that's no problem.
And they're healthy for you, and that's Italian parsley, right?
Yes, this is flat leaf parsley. So there's two types of main parsley that you see in the store. It's like this flat leaf kind, or there's a real curly type of regular parsley, but this is the Italian flat leaf parsley, yep. Okay. Oh, bad badge in the way.
Is cilantro the same thing as that kind of parsley?
No, actually they're two completely different flavors.
Okay.
Yep. Cilantro has more like a even a soapy kind of flavor almost. And it I heard that 10% of the population cannot stand cilantro because they think it tastes like soap. But cilantro really has more of, it pairs well with Asian and Mexican, where parsley pairs more with like Italian flavors. Yeah. So I'm gonna save a little bit of that parsley for our quinoa and throw the rest of it in here. Now, our dressing is gonna be really super simple. It's just like a lemon vinaigrette. Okay, so I'm gonna make it right in here, our lemon vinaigrette. And I'm gonna show you. So to really reinforce the lemon flavor, I'm going to grate some of the lemon zest in there. And always do your zesting before you cut the lemon open, because it's a lot harder to zest it once it's already sliced open. So we're just gonna take some of this and slice off some of that zest. Now, lemon juice has good flavor, but if you want a really lemony flavor, you've got to have the zest. And I think zest too, lemon zest, orange zest, lime zest, also so festive, so flavorful, really super yummy. And just because I have it, let's also put some orange zest in there. And if you didn't have like a microplane like this, you could always like finely mince some peel a little bit just for the flavor, but then take care not to actually consume it. Okay, so I've got some zest in there, and then we're going to squeeze some of the juice, and that's going to be our main acid for the vinaigrette. You know, vinaigrette's usually vinegar and oil, but we're not going to use vinegar in this one. We're just going to use the lemon juice because that's going to be acidic enough. Okay. So I'll probably use maybe 1.5 lemons of juice for maybe 1/4 of a cup. Half of this in here.
Okay, on that lemon squeezer like that, can I see how you put it in there again?
Yeah, so I actually put it face down.
Okay.
Okay, so the juice, most of the juice comes just out.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to have one of these lemon squeezers, you could just squeeze it by hand. But I find that these get out a lot of the juice really well.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're gonna just put a touch of grainy mustard in there. So I have this whole grain, nice seedy mustard. I love this. It acts as an emulsifier for the dressing, and it also adds a lot of good flavor that pairs well with the carrots and the other flavors we've got going on. Okay, so it is simmering in there. You don't want it, just one tip for your quinoa, you don't want it to just sit. You don't want it to have no movement, right? To just be sitting there like broth. You want it to be boiling and simmering like the entire time. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Woo. Explosion. So about a teaspoon of grainy mustard in there. And then just to balance out a little bit of the acidity, we're going to add a little bit of sweetness via honey. Okay. And we're going to have some natural sweetness from the carrots as well. So I'd say about a teaspoon of honey. And then we're going to finish it all out with a little bit of seasoning from salt and pepper and a little bit of olive oil. Hot seat's open if you want it. Okay, so fresh cracked pepper, touch of salt, and then some olive oil. I love olive oil as my main go-to for both cooking, roasting vegetables, and making vinaigrettes. It has a really nice, light, mild flavor and has a lot of good healthy fats and antioxidants. Okay, so let's go. With vinaigrettes, you usually do about 2/3 part oil, 1/3 part vinegar, or 1/3 part acidity, like our lemon juice. Okay, so then I'm just gonna put this on here and give it a good shake. And like I said, that mustard really helps emulsify the dressing so it doesn't separate back out. If you let it sit, it will separate back out, but you just have to shake it again. Okay. And we're gonna drizzle that over our salad and give it all a good toss. There we go. Any questions on this recipe? Looks good, huh?
You could put more pistachios in if you wanted, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I just think this is really a nice, lovely, light side dish. Of course, you'll probably have a lot of other side dishes, but this one can kind of lift up the whole meal and make it a lot more refreshing. Okay, a palate cleanser, if you will. And an interesting and kind of new way to eat carrots.
When does she eat carrot salad?
What?
I love carrots.
Carrot salad, this is where
Anything
it's
with a
at.
vegetable I love. Unless it's some sort of spider, then I'll pass.
Okay, so you just want to toss that really well, and we're just going to let that sit in the dressing for a little while. If you were to like prep this ahead of time, I would keep the dressing and the carrots separately and then combine it like 10 minutes before you were gonna serve it. But those flavors will come together nicely.
Excuse me, you said if you were, what, say that again, please?
So like if you were gonna prep this ahead of time, I would grate the carrots and put all the radishes and the herbs in, and then keep that separately, and then your dressing separately. So then when you're about to serve it, then pour the dressing on.
Oh, okay.
Instead of combining the dressing and letting it sit for like a whole day, it would probably get a little bit soggy.
Right.
Yep. Okay, so why don't we top it off with a few more pistachios for Mary. And me, because I like pistachios. Okay, perfect. All right, moving on. Okay, 2 down. So next recipe we're gonna do is a beverage. Okay, so a lot of times at Thanksgiving, you know, maybe there's alcoholic beverages, or maybe there's, you know, kind of more caloric things like eggnog and punch and things like that. So I'm going to show you just a little bit lighter version of a punch. Okay, so I'm going to make it in this bowl here. I think it's closed. Okay, so it's going to be like a pomegranate punch. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to put in there are some fruit slices. So I'm going to put orange and lime. And since pomegranate is going to be one of our main flavors in this punch, I think that would be really pretty if you put some pomegranate arils in there as well. Or even, you know what I do is I make ice cube trays and I put pomegranate arils in the water and then freeze it. So then you have like these pretty pomegranate ice cubes that are really festive. You could do that with cranberries too. Or even if you cut orange slices and put them in your ice cube trays, then you would have really pretty ice cubes for your punch.
What are arils?
So the pomegranate seeds,
Oh.
they're called arils, actually, instead of seeds. But yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to give this orange a slice. Actually, I don't want to get parsley on it. There we go. And then we're going to put some lime slices in there as well. Okay. And let's do the lime. If you have a serrated knives work really well for cutting citrus fruits because they get through that tough outer skin. Like this one is not really doing very well. Does everyone know what I mean when I say serrated knife?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so that goes in. Then we're going to put a little bit of pomegranate juice. Okay, so I got this 100% pomegranate juice, and we're going to put about 1 cup of that in here. And pomegranate juice is really high in antioxidants, and it's really good for you. Not make too much. And then we're going to put some 100% orange juice. Both orange and pomegranate are in season and super yummy this time of year and festive. So we got about a cup of orange juice. That's closed, right? Okay. And then, you know, a lot of times in punches you put soda or, you know, ice cream or other kind of sugary things like that. We're actually going to have some fizz, but it's going to come from sparkling water instead of soda. And sparkling water is essentially water, but just has carbonation added to it. So it doesn't have any sugar, doesn't have any flavor, just plain, but that woohoo! So I open it slowly. That pomegranate and orange is gonna give us a lot of that good flavor.
Should have had all of that.
So a lot of carbonation in this one, that's good. Sometimes I have sparkling water, it's kind of flat, but I love it when it has that good fizz. Okay, so then we're gonna put this in and dilute some of that juice. So you're gonna get kind of the fizzy, sweet, yummy punch that you like, but for a fraction of the calories and a fraction of the sugar, okay? And like I said, your little fruit ice cubes would be a fabulous addition to this. Okay, I think I'll just leave it there. So, and there you have it, pomegranate punch. Okay, and you could do this with like 100% cranberry juice or really whatever kind of juice that you have on hand. I would just recommend doing 100% juice and then sparkling water, not soda or anything like that.
Is this for a diabetic person?
I think in moderation and compared to some other things, it would be good for someone with type 2 diabetes. Absolutely. Yeah.
If they want to do moderation.
Yeah. I mean, I think
a
it,
small cup right there.
exactly. If you have a
I'm
small
gonna
cup
drink that
and,
whole thing.
I would.
She'd rather have that than water.
well, stick with water most of the time and have a treat once in a while. It's my kind of saying. Okay, so there we go with our punch. Any questions about that? Or holiday drinks in general?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Does, like, or what they call it, oh, shoot. It's like soda, you know, like club soda. Is that loaded with a lot of sugar?
So club soda is pretty similar to sparkling water. I think the main difference is that club soda has sodium added to it, salt added to it. That's the main difference though. But I think that club soda would be a decent option as well. Okay, so this is what quinoa looks like. Okay, so most of the liquid is absorbed. I'm gonna leave it on the heat just so that it continues to dry out just a little bit more. Okay. So that smells really good. Okay, I'm gonna move this over here. Next recipe is actually an appetizer recipe, okay? And it's really easy for some of us to get bogged down even by appetizer round. So I decided to show you kind of a little, I love this recipe. I do a bunch of different variations on it. It's one of my favorites to offer as just a simple kind of pre-bite before the main meal. So let me just show you here. Okay, so basically it's a little skewer. It's like an antipasti skewer. So basically antipasti means a mixture of like vegetables and cheese and olives and things like that. So what I have here is just kind of a medley. I'm gonna use a fresh basil leaf. I just put it on my mini skewer. I just got these mini skewers. They're basically like a large toothpick. I got them from Winco, okay? And then I am putting on a artichoke heart. Okay, these are marinated artichoke hearts, also found in kind of like the dressing and condiments aisle. Have those. Then I'm putting on a tomato. Now, a lot of times I make these with little baby tomatoes, but it's not really tomato season right now, so I opt for when the tomatoes were picked fresh in season, and so I have these sun-dried tomatoes. You can buy sun-dried tomatoes dry packed, or in a marinade. Like these are in a marinade, so they have a lot of good flavor. So I just have a piece of sun-dried tomato I'm gonna put on there. Okay, then the next I have these marinated mozzarella balls. I think I've used these in class before. You find these kind of in the deli section where the specialty cheeses are. You can usually find something like this. You can buy just mozzarella balls or the marinated ones. You can have, there's kind of a theme. These are all really marinated. They add a lot of good flavors. So I just chopped them in half and adding a piece of mozzarella on there. And then I'm adding a black olive. Okay, I really love Kalamata olives, but I love any olive. So I'm using black olives for this recipe. Okay, so there's that. And then this actually isn't in the recipe, but I had these left over, so I decided to add them. I boiled these little cheese tortellini. Okay, and so I'm just adding these on here as well. So that's kind of a yummy addition to your little skewer, okay? So I have those. I'll make one more here. So it's basically basil leaf, and I mean, you could really use any combination. You could do roasted red peppers on here, any type of olive, any type of cube of cheese, like maybe like sharp cheddar or a different type of cheese you can have on there. You could use fresh tomato, even though, you know, maybe they aren't in season. And I think these are kind of fun because they're red and white and green. So they're kind of like Christmas almost. They look even more festive when it is a fresh tomato because it's like this bright red and bright green and bright white. It's really pretty. And then a little cheese tortellini. So how easy are those, right? And so
Kind of
yummy.
looks like a snowman in a way.
Yeah, kind of. Let me turn this down a little bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna finish them off with just a little drizzle of balsamic glaze. Okay, so I get this from Trader Joe's. You could make it, you could just use balsamic vinegar reduced down if you had that. So, and I would normally give these a little drizzle of olive oil too, but actually the artichoke hearts and the sun-dried tomatoes are marinated in olive oil, so you don't really need it in this recipe. So, yum, super good. And there's those. Perfect and easy, right? And the perfect little bite. Does anyone have any questions about how to make those or ideas for those?
The balsamic glaze.
Yeah.
Could you use that on salads still?
100%, yeah. I think it's really good. Salmon, salads, chicken, quinoa. It's really good on like everything. I mean, basically it tastes like balsamic vinegar, but reduced down and a little bit sweeter. So it adds that nice finishing touch to a lot of dishes. So next time you're at Trader Joe's, make sure to pick some of that up. Okay, moving on. We've got one more recipe, okay? So we are going to be making sweet potatoes, okay? And usually for Thanksgiving, sweet potatoes have brown sugar and marshmallows and, ugh, no, I am not a fan of that either. I've never been a fan, even since I was little. I was just like, oh, no, that's gross. Oh, good, this is drying out nicely. So we're actually going to put a little bit of a twist on the potatoes, and we are going to make Chipotle Smashed Sweet Potatoes. Okay, so instead of being overly sweet, we're going to balance out the sweetness of the potatoes with a little bit of spice. Okay, so I have some sweet potatoes here, and I baked these. Now, if you make sweet potatoes, I always recommend steaming or baking, not boiling, because when you boil the potatoes, you're going to lose a lot of the flavor and a lot of the nutrients of the sweet potato. But when you bake it, you don't have the water there to seep out all the flavor and the nutrients. Okay, so I just baked these wrapped in tin foil for about 350 degrees for an hour and 10 minutes. Okay, and then when I took them out, the peels are really easy to come off. I kind of just took the peels off before you guys came in here. So I got my sweet potatoes. They're really cooked through. Took off the peel.
But I like to use organic stuff as much as possible. And,
Yeah.
you know, when you do that, you can leave the skin on because it's such a thin skin.
Yeah, definitely.
Would that be okay in this?
Definitely. I think for mashed potatoes or mashed sweet potatoes, leaving the skin on would be totally fine. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I got my sweet potatoes here. I'm going to add a little bit of butter, which is a pretty traditional flavor, okay? So, oops, melting a little bit. So about 2 tablespoons of butter. And then probably one of my favorite ingredients to use always in cooking. Anyone know what it is?
Salt.
Salt? No.
I use salt.
Okay, chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. How many of you have used this? Not familiar with this? Oh my goodness. There's so much flavor in these chipotle peppers and in the adobo sauce. You have to be careful. They're hotter than heck. Okay, but the richness and the depth of flavor that these have doesn't compare to any raw pepper ever. These are where it's at. Okay, I use these a lot for like tacos or Mexican food. But as you'll see, there are these peppers, and then it's in what's called adobo sauce. So I'm just gonna take some of the adobo sauce and put it in there. Okay, so here's the sauce. I'm just gonna drizzle that in. And like I said, it's pretty spicy, so I'm probably gonna put about 1.5 tablespoons in there. Also, you could take out a pepper and chop it up real fine and add it in there as well. But we're gonna see how it tastes just with the sauce to start out with, okay? We're gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper. Oops. Salt and pepper.
And what kind of salt are you using again?
Kosher. Okay, and then we're gonna give them a good mash. So I just have this potato masher here.
Plastic thing is on.
Thank you. Okay, so gonna smash these up. As you can see, there's nothing fancy about it. I'm just kind of going at it with a potato masher. And it's best to get these right when they're warm because they smash a lot easier. You don't want to let them cool down or else you'll probably have a lot of lumps. One potato did not get as cooked as some of the other potatoes.
Throw it in the blender,
Okay.
it'll be fine.
We're just gonna take that one out. That one didn't get cooked quite as well as some of these other ones here. Okay. And you know, sweet potatoes, although they do have sweet in the name, are actually not that high in sugar, and they're actually extremely good for you. You can tell by that vibrant orange color that they have a lot of good nutrients, and they can actually be a really healthy Thanksgiving side dish as long as you don't dress them up with too much butter and sugar. Okay? To me, they're already kind of sweet as it is, so why add more sugar, right?
That's what I'm kind of worried.
Okay. And the trick with sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes, do not over mash them, do not over process them, because if you do, it breaks down too much of the starch and they become kind of gluey or more gelatinous if you're constantly breaking down that starch and mashing them a lot. Okay, so kind of just mash them until they're smashed, if you will, and then leave them alone. Especially sweet potatoes. I mean, they don't need to be completely lump-free or whatever, like people like their mashed potatoes lump-free. So I think sweet potatoes are really super simple. Okay, so any questions about mashed potatoes or mashed sweet potatoes? No? Okay, I'm gonna check the heat on these.
Okay, you said you could bake them or steam them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna add some more of this. Just because I want
Not spicy enough.
Not spicy enough.
Give me a habanero, I'll be good to go.
That's really good. I love those. I love the sweet and spicy flavor. It's so good.
Are you gonna cut up one of those little peppers that's in there?
No, I'm not. I like to gauge it with the sauce from it first because those peppers are really spicy. So I've definitely overdone it a couple times, putting a whole pepper in there, and then I'm like, oh, I can't even eat this. It's so hot. But I think this kind of level is perfect. Okay, so we got these done, and I would serve these right away if you're making them at home. And then we're gonna do one last thing to finish off our quinoa stuffing. Okay, so it's over here drying out a little bit. It's done cooking. Everything's looking really good. We're just gonna add in a little bit of crunch and chew. Okay, so we've got some crunch from some chopped almonds. Okay, we're gonna add those in. Nuts are kind of something that sometimes people add to stuffing, sometimes they don't. So I'm just gonna put in some chopped almonds. And then I also have some dried cherries that I'm going to put in there as well, which also are super delicious and add a good kind of sweetness and chewiness. Yeah.
Our dried vegetable fruit, I guess, would be more sweeter or something, or they stay the same?
Then fresh, you mean?
Yeah.
Right, so dried fruit is usually higher in sugar than fresh fruit because when you think about a cherry, okay, cherry's this big, dried cherry is this big, okay, so you take out all the water and you condense all the sugar into a smaller package, okay? So dried fruit is something you'd use more sparingly than fresh fruit, but just a little bit here and there adds a lot of depth and flavor to dishes, so I would just say use sparingly. Okay? Any other questions? Oh, and like I said, once you kind of finish this step in the quinoa stuffing, then the recipe suggests that you bake it. But like I said, we're not going to do that today. Okay? I didn't bring my oven with me. Gosh darn. I keep telling Chaz they need to get me an oven. They need to get me like an industrial-sized kitchen so you guys can all cook with me, right? You guys write that on your comment cards. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, any other questions regarding anything holidays or food or anything before we try some of this deliciousness?
Turkey.
Turkey.
That's one of my favorites.
Turkey is a really lean, healthy option. I think, you know, probably the healthiest thing on the Thanksgiving table, what is it? Turkey, usually. Unless you have some of these delicious things, right? But turkey is a fantastic option. And let me tell you, I always do this with my turkey. So have any of you heard of spatchcocking? Okay, so spatchcocking, how many of you have heard of butterflying a chicken, like butterflying a chicken? No? Okay, so it's essentially the same thing. Basically what you do is you remove the backbone of the bird and splay it out so it lays flat. Okay, so normally a turkey is round and large, right? When you take the backbone out, you're able to break that breastbone and flatten it out so it lays more evenly. That turkey will roast in 60 to 90 minutes and it won't be dry at all. So when you have that big volume, you know, your breast gets dried out before the thighs are even kind of done because the dark meat takes longer to roast. But when you spatchcock it and spread it out or butterfly it, it cooks more evenly and in less time. So the breast is tender and juicy and not dried out. Same with the thighs. So Google it, look up spatchcocking a turkey, and maybe try it this year with your turkey. I mean, I tried it one year, I'll never go back. I will never go back to roasting an entire turkey because it is just so much better.
Can you spell what you're saying?
Yes, S-P-A-T-C-H,
Okay.
spatch,
Okay.
C-O-C-K.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just had a question because my husband doesn't really like turkey, but I always fix a ham.
Uh-huh.
And I always used to use brown sugar
Uh-huh.
and pineapple. Do you have any idea for a different kind of glaze?
So maybe honey. I mean, that would still be sugar, but it would be less refined. I actually just saw a recipe that used honey and like Dijon mustard and a little bit of pineapple marmalade, and it looked really tasty. So I might try and look up like a honey Dijon ham or something like that, or a honey Dijon glaze, because I've had that before. My mom has made that before, and it's really tasty.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can also cook your turkey in a paper bag.
Okay, cooking your turkey in a paper bag. I've never heard of that.
It comes out just like you said if you play it.
Yeah.
It's really good. Matter of fact, the night showed me how to do it.
Nice.
But it came, and it cooks less.
So cooking in a paper bag.
You have to,
Doesn't that sound
oil
like
it.
a fire hazard?
No,
Well, you could, safe enough, I guess.
no.
Maybe
you-
Google
you-
some instructions first.
Yeah,
just-
I've never heard of that.
that's for
Yeah.
camera, right?
Ah,
Oh, it's really good.
nice.
Huh.
You oil it and then what else?
Yeah,
Nutrition
then you
oil.
just wrap it up and stick it in the.
Well, plastic paper.
Very good.
It's really good.
Okay, you guys. Well,
And
anything
it's
else?
juicy when it-
I have, is there any way you can do a turkey for our Christmas class?
Hey, that would be nice.
That's a great question.
And spatchcock it like you were talking about, so we see really what you do?
I will definitely consider that, Mary. I will. My Christmas class, I was planning on you guys' next class to do more baking things, make some healthy holiday cookies and sweets, but we may need to balance out the sweets with some turkey, so we'll see what I can do.
Well, it's your class, I don't know, I didn't know.
No, that's a good idea. I would love to show you guys. I actually thought about doing it for this class, but it is a little bit messy to show you me actually butchering it. Actually, you know what's a good idea is to ask your butcher to spatchcock it for you. And then you can just have it already done, because it is a little bit messy and it's a little bit technical to do it yourself.
But you'd have to make sure it was a fresh turkey, not a frozen turkey.
Not necessarily. You could get a frozen turkey and thaw it and then do that. That'd be fine. Yeah.
But if the butcher was gonna do it, it'd have to be
Right.
thawed.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so yeah, so next class, you guys, is December, what's the second Wednesday in December, the 12th? I can't remember. It's something around there, and we're doing some healthier holiday treats. So staying healthy throughout the Christmas season, especially for people who are trying to lose weight or have type 2 diabetes. That can be really tricky, okay? So, go ahead and come on through and try some of these things that we had today. And if you have any other questions, let me know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh,
Do you have bigger plates or no?
oh, I know. Those are terrible plates.